Hi everyone, I'm Denise Rose of the Happy Vegan Couple. If this is your first time with me, I'd first like to share with you that along with my husband Georgie, our passion is to help people transition from animal and processed food diets to ones of whole plant foods. And we do this in a variety of ways. We have a YouTube and a Facebook channel, and on YouTube, we post cooking videos of really healthy, whole food, plant-based recipes. And we show you step-by-step instructions. So if you don't really know how to cook or you don't feel confident, you can kind of cook along with Georgie. So we take the time to make longer videos because we really want to help people who don't feel confident in their cooking skills so that they can easily get onto eating more plants. And we also teach classes in Tucson, Arizona. I'm doing a Zoom class now, 10 weeks, 2 hours at a time. My students are going to learn more than most doctors learn about plant-based nutrition because they don't really teach that in medical school, if you might know that. And then finally, I've recently started doing transition story interviews with people who've actually made the journey from eating a diet that was not very healthy to one that is great for optimal health. And I feel that we can learn from people who've made the journey, hear the challenges they had, hear the benefits that they have experienced. So I hope you'll be enjoying these interviews because I'm loving talking to people about their journeys. So today we're going to talk to a 44-year-old woman from Virginia whose name is Evon. And like so many other people, I bet so many folks can relate to her story in that she was addicted to those ultra-processed foods, right? They're so rich in calories and no nutrients and doing nothing for your health. And of course, that created issues for her, like it does for most people who are addicted to those foods, right? Excess weight on her body, not feeling like she was living the life she wanted or deserved. And of course, like all the rest of the people with these issues, she's tried so many diets and went to support groups over the years, but nothing really clicked, that made it work for her until January of this year, 2020, Evon committed herself to eating a diet of just whole plant foods. No more of those processed foods with all that sugar, salt, and fat, that is so horrible for your health. And so she's really made an amazing transformation in terms of losing a significant amount of weight, and her life is, different now. I want to just show you her pictures before and after so you can see what I am talking about. So let me bring these up and you can see Evon's change. So look at the difference between the before picture and the after. I mean, that's a significantly different body, right? I mean, and I feel like I see this sense of energy emanating from that new physique of Evon. And I'm sure that her thinking has changed as well in her mind as she's experienced this new way, of eating and going through the world. So with that, I'm going to bring her on and we're going to hear her story about once she upped her game to whole plant foods, how her life has changed. We'll hear some of the struggles and the challenges and then the successes and the benefits. And she's even sharing her story more and more to other people. We'll get to that later too. So with that, let me bring on Evon. I'm going to unmute her mic and then we can start to hear her story. So Evon, are you there?
I am. Hello, Denise. How are you?
Great. I'm so happy you decided to come into this conversation with me and we can hear your story and learn from you and inspire other people. So what I'd like to start with, you told me that for about half of your life that you just really didn't have a good relationship with food. It was not one that you felt was health promoting. So why don't we just start with that? Maybe you could tell me before you made this transition, your old kind of mindset or thinking, what was that all about for you? What was your relationship with food before?
So as a child, my relationship with food was controlled. And so my parents actually, for the most part, fed us, my siblings and myself, pretty healthy. all things considered. Definitely got our fruits in, our vegetables in, our whole grains, our legumes. They didn't have us eating, lunch from school. We would bring our, lunch from home. We did most of our eating from home and just in general, preparing our meals ourselves. Of course, we went out to eat from time to time and so on and so forth. But I would say, all things considered, I was raised in a household with pretty healthy eating.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it, because you just mentioned several categories that are kind of like in the plant foods that we eat now. So then something switched for you, right? As you started getting older?
Definitely. Once I became an adult and left home, I remember it being more so about, okay, I'm grown now. I can do whatever I want to do. And now I know, looking back, that I had this draw, that these substances, salt, oil, flour, sugar, alcohol, they were speaking to me, calling my name in a way that they don't necessarily call everybody's name. But I didn't know that back then. Right. I just knew I wanted this stuff. And of course, the more I ate it, the more I wanted it. The more I ate foods that had these various excitotoxins in them, the more I wanted them. And I noticed pretty quickly, because the size I am now, this is the size I was when I graduated from high school.
Oh, wow. I was curious about that. So, wow.
This is the size I was. I was wearing a size 0. And throughout childhood, myself and my siblings, we were always very small framed. So this is our natural size. This is my natural size. So I noticed after I graduated from high school and, moved out of the house and started amping up eating processed foods more and more regularly every day, that I was not this size anymore. But I didn't know what was going on. So I was, I joined Jazzercise, and I always will love Jazzercise. I started that back, like I said, fresh out of high school. By 19, I was doing Jazzercise because that's what I was trying to use to bring weight down, not recognizing that it was in the food.
Yeah, and that's an important point, actually, because there's actually scientific studies where they try to decide how much is it the exercise versus the food, for maintaining weight. And it really is the food. Exercise is critical for us, right?
It is. But it is.
One thing that's going to drop you like what we saw.
We can't outrun what we put in our mouths. Yeah. It's just that simple. We cannot. And most of it is food. And so essentially, I was a teenage mom. And so once I had my second child, that's when things started really changing, because she was battling croup, if you know what that is.
Please define that, because I'm not sure everybody would.
Essentially, it has to do with something that's going on within the lungs. It happens to a lot of children in particular. Something that's going on within the lungs that causes them to have a cough where they sound like a seal. And you can tell that it's hurting them. And so my youngest daughter, who's 17 now, so this was about 16 years ago, is when I noticed that she was having this issue every fall, winter. And I started doing research and trying to figure out what could be the root cause of it. Between that and also meeting some pivotal people in my life who were giving me information about the cons of consuming meat products outside of seafood, I was able to put all of that together and realize that, okay, we needed to come away as a household from eating any kind of meat outside of seafood.
So was
And
that
so
basically, excuse me, when you were being shared that information, was that basically regarding the health issues of meat, or were some of the other tangential issues that we sometimes talk about?
it was all of the above. It was all of the above. And
So the
so
health, the
yeah,
environment, the animals, you mean?
exactly. It was
Okay.
all of the above, but it was the main focus was on health,
Okay. Uh-huh.
which made sense for me because I was thinking about my child's health
Right.
and trying to get rid of something that kept cropping up every year that she was battling. So, so it's been about 15 years now that we have cut all meat out except seafood.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when that started about 15 years ago. And
Gotcha.
then from there, we have been pescatarians all this time up until about 4 years ago is when I cut seafood. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Just one second. Okay, so like 4 years ago, then you gave up the fish. So now you're like, you've given up meat, you've given up fish. And so part of some animal foods that were still part of your diet then were like dairy?
Yes, dairy here and there. It's like dairy felt like the last hill. And so I have over the years successfully stopped dairy from time to time for certain lengths of time, but I always found myself returning. Yeah.
And do you think that was because of craving or convenience or both or something else?
I think that it was a combination of cravings, but also I remember that it was about dealing with processed foods in general. Still, even not eating meats, even not eating seafood, but still dealing with processed foods and being out. You know, I remember that we got to a point years ago where we don't keep any dairy in our house. We don't keep any, you know, butter, eggs. We have vegan butter, you know, like we don't keep any dairy in our house. But it was more so about ingesting these foods that had dairy in them when out.
Right,
Either
outside your
grabbing
house.
something, from a convenience store or something like that. Maybe being in the mood for, I remember being in the mood for baked goods sometimes.
Right.
And just being willing to just ingest dairy because I was in the mood for processed baked goods.
Right.
Because see, I had not been, I had convinced myself that I didn't know how to cook. So
you got well, you probably know how to cook now, but I was going to say,
absolutely. Oh, I definitely do now. That's for sure. But I still would love to check your videos out, Denise. But yeah, definitely I do now. But yeah, for most of my adulthood, I had convinced myself that I didn't know how to cook.
Right.
So, you know, raising my children, essentially all these years, I've been raising them on processed, boxed, bagged, frozen, canned, and I'm not talking about salt-free canned. You know what I mean? I'm talking about processed canned with salt in it and, you know, frozen and boxed and bagged. And I thought that was the best I could do. That's what I had convinced myself that I didn't know how to cook and that I wasn't any good at it and that I wouldn't be any good at it.
And I just want to ask you one thing, because it sounds interesting to me. Like, so you didn't have the challenge of the cheese craving that many people talk about, because so often, you know, when I'm teaching, people say, I just can't give up that cheese, right? And we know it's so addictive. It's got those casomorphines that, you know, work on your brain like, you know, drugs.
So I have, but I have been doing research about these things for so many years already. So for me, I'm the type of person, whereas once I have information, it's just not going to affect me the same. because I know what it is. So I learned information about the caseomorphines and things of that nature that's in cheese. I learned that information many, many years ago. So sure, it would draw me, but I knew why it was happening.
Well, you were ahead of a lot of people, Evon, because I don't believe the average person actually knows that knowledge. So,
yeah,
you
and just
obviously
in general,
were ahead of a
Denise,
lot of people.
yeah, in general, I am and have been for a very long time. I love to explore topics and research topics, and I love to get information just in general. And some people might call me a nonconformist in general. So as a result, that's how I think anyway. I'm always trying to get information, learn about things that's not common knowledge, particularly when it comes to health. I'm actually a holistic practitioner and have been for well over 15 years. So in general, it's a lot of information that I've come across that has actually been helping me with these addictions.
Right. So I'd just like to ask you, besides the weight, the extra weight you had on your body, did you feel, because you started making this change this year when you were 43 years old. So prior to being 43, you had extra weight, but did you feel you had any other health challenges, or did you think you were generally very healthy and you just had some weight on your body?
Oh, I definitely experienced foggy brain. I experienced low energy, next to no recognition of symptoms from these mental illnesses that I've been diagnosed with. I actually only just got diagnosed in 2017. So that's something in and of itself. Not having labels for these symptoms, and certainly not having recognition of these symptoms, understanding what they were, understanding the flags that lead up to letting me know that they're coming. My complexion,
So that changed too, huh?
Absolutely. It's not that I necessarily had the worst complexion anyway, because I haven't worn makeup in like many, many years. Like I tried it in my early 20s and very quickly was just like, this isn't my thing.
I'm with you. No makeup on this
all natural, right? All natural, right? So my nails were peeling. My nails were peeling. But I did want to make sure that you knew that actually the way that I eat now, I really started discovering it back at the beginning of 2017.
And so let's talk about how you mean this diet now of just whole plant foods, and you're very strict with the not eating foods that have the added salt, sugar, fat, flour. Alcohol is a different issue with the beverage, but in terms of the food items, so you're very careful with how you do that. And so when back in 2017, was there any particular advice that you learned this? I mean, did you learn this from any particular source? Because in the plant-based community, there's a lot of doctors and dietitians. They're all giving lectures and all of this. There's some little differences in maybe protocol of how to do it from one to another. I mean, but there's a lot of consensus. So how did you find your way into that?
Okay, so another thing that I always like to clear up is that I don't call it a diet, because I'm not dying and I'm not eating things that are dying. I call it a live it, because I'm living and I'm eating life and I'm eating for my life. So there's that. And then, so back in 2017, at the end of 2016, we're talking about dairy again. End of 2016, I believe that I was just completing my first full year of no seafood. And I felt prompted to attack dairy again. And so I started making my mind up, you know what? as 2016 started closing out, that I was going to go ahead and giving up dairy another shot.
Right.
And so it was feeling super stressful though, Denise, super, super stressful. And I remember just feeling like I just wanted to keep going out to eat. And, I was taking my daughter with me, my youngest daughter, and would just be like, all right, so this is it. But then I would go one more time. And I started thinking, I think I need something else because this is feeling too stressful. So after meditating on that, I realized I had something else that I could also do so that giving up dairy, cutting dairy out wouldn't feel so stressful. And I came up with challenging myself not to consume anything, any type of dish, any kind of snack, treat, whatever. I don't use those words anymore, snack and treat, but back then I still did. That I had not created myself from scratch.
Oh, wow. Okay. So from somebody who doesn't know how to cook, doesn't feel like she can. And I mean, I'm sure that's partly why you're going out a lot, is like, because it took the stress out of like not knowing, feeling confident in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so now you've like, wow.
So that's what happened. So the beginning of 2017, it worked because guess what? I wasn't thinking about how difficult or stressful it felt to give dairy up anymore. You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about why in the world was I fiending for processed food so much? I only made it 11 days. January the 11th of 2017, I said, I need to go get me some Lay's potato chips, okay? But during that 11 days, I was learning how to fix food from scratch because all I knew is if this is gonna work, I need to be making things that I like. Let me see, how can I make the things that I like, right? And so that opened up a whole new world for me.
And how did you start learning those cooking skills? I mean, did you?
I just started teaching myself. I was going online and looking for recipes and, reading the recipes and figuring out, what were they saying that I needed to do and how to do it. So that's what I was doing. And then once January the 11th hit and I wound up going and, grabbing up some chips, then it wasn't so simple as, all right, well, that's it. No. For me, it was, why was I feeling like that? I don't like that. I am someone who has never liked feeling like a prisoner to anything or anyone, any kind of material, any kind of food, any kind of person, any kind of ideas. That's not who I am. So that sparked me to start digging online to figure out why is my brain acting like this. And as I started doing that research and digging, that's when I started finding out about the pleasure trap. That's when I started finding out about the Motivational Triad. And the Pleasure Trap is a book by Dr. Lyle. You already know.
Right. I know. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I started finding out about satiety index. And I started finding out about calorie density. I started finding out about all of these various things. I started finding out about the fact that salt, oil, sugar, flour, alcohol, those are excitotoxins. And every time I consume these things, then my brain gets a dopamine hit. And of course, it wants more and more dopamine hits because that feels great. I started finding out about all of these things. I started finding out about what is a refined food addict. And between 2014 and 2015, I had already gone and started going to Overeaters Anonymous. So I already had just learned not long before 2017 that, and just heard for the first time, that overeating is not my fault, that it's actually a disorder, that it's considered an illness. But once I started doing this further research in 2017, that's when I started finding out that our brains are actually hardwired to desire the highest caloric density food in our environment. So with that type of information, then I recognize, okay, I can do something about this. I don't have to be a prisoner. I can do something about this. And I was enjoying, because I had never done this before in my adult life, fixing food from scratch. Not like this. I'm talking about, simple things, of course, but like this, oh no, I had never really done that in my adult life. So it was exciting.
Right. And I just want to, kind of butt in. I mean, I know you know this, that the food manufacturers, they pay a lot of money to scientists, right? To create these ultra processed foods so that we will crave them.
They have the information. They know.
Right.
They know about the motivational triad. They know that our brains are hardwired to desire the highest caloric density.
Right. So they're very complicit, really, in
they know about the
culture, right, of disease.
Definitely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And trapped in that.
And we pay them.
Yeah.
We pay them on top of that. We pay them. It's not something that, is being done to us with no complicity at all on our part. We're actually paying.
Yeah, so that's an important point you're just bringing up, because as I just said, they're complicit. But as you just said, it's not a one-way street.
No, it's not. It's not.
There's a consumer there who's deciding.
Right. But it is important to bring up that we are complicit without information. Most of us don't know that our brains are hardwired to desire the highest caloric density food in our environment. Most of us don't know that information. So since we don't know that, and we don't understand that this is what our brains are hardwired to do, it's easier for us to just assume that we can control ourselves, that we can moderate. Most of us don't know what the definition of a refined food addict is. Most of us don't know that information. Most of us, and I would say that, at large, society doesn't want us to have that information because, it affects the bottom line of these various companies that are in business to prey on the information that they have about us.
Right, and then of course we have several other institutions that we can say are kind of complicit in the profit motive. We've got the pharmaceutical industry that benefits from the drugs for all the diseases we get from all this bad food. We've got the hospitals that make tons of money by putting stents and bypass surgery and all this for the leading killer of Americans, heart disease, when that could be prevented, most of it, right, by diet.
But like you said earlier.
Yeah, one other thing I just
earlier.
I'm sorry.
Well,
one other thing I just want to add in.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry, we got this delay in Zoom.
It's okay.
I don't mean to be talking over you, but I just wanted to add one thing, because again, when you were talking about that our brains are hardwired, as I understand it, the main reason is that was evolutionary biology, that a long time ago wasn't so easy to find all the food,
it wasn't so easy to find the highest calorie density. It wasn't easy to find the high calorie. It's become easier over the years due to these industries, right? It's become easier. Yeah, it didn't used to be so easy, so we didn't have to deal with obesity and things of that nature. Now it's really easy. We can pick up the phone or get on the, phone or the computer and order high calorie density. It's easy to just go to the grocery store and bring it home. It's very, very easy. Everywhere you look is there.
Right, and as you also said earlier, like you gave this example of like going to the convenience store, right? Or that, like those places in the gas stations. When you walk in there now, you must be like, because basically all the food in that place is processed, right?
Well,
like the gas
you know what?
Grocery stores?
Back in 2017, when I first discovered this way of eating, that was how I looked at it. I looked at it like I was aggravated. I didn't really want to be in those places. But what I learned and what I recognized at the beginning of this year when I recommitted to eating like this, I learned that it will be a good idea for me to change my way of thinking when it comes to things like that, if I wanted to be successful. And so now, actually, I look at convenience stores, I look at restaurants, fast food spots, and grocery stores. I look at them with excitement because I love challenges. And so I have been actually figuring out what is in there that I can eat if I absolutely need to, because I'm a very spontaneous person, Denise, very spontaneous. So for me,
so share with us then. So for people, so when now that you are eating this way and you go there, so what out of the limited options, because I believe they're very limited of the overall what's in those stores, but the options you find that work for you now, what are some of those?
Fruit. Start right off, especially a convenience store. I notice, I don't know about where you live at, but where I live at, in general, we have 7-Elevens. That's, the most popular convenience store. They always have apples and bananas, always. So that's one thing right there. Okay. There's something called a What's It bar that's out now. And I mean, now that's it, not what's it. That's it bar. And it's just fruit. So there's that. There are raw almonds, raw cashews, just kind of depending on which 7-Eleven it is. At least most of the time you can find raw almonds. I'm talking about things in a pinch. You know what I mean? I'm talking about things in a pinch, but with a banana or an apple, I'm never going to go wrong. Okay. They also, in their delis, just in 7-Elevens, they keep, a lot of times they cut up fresh pineapples. They cut up strawberries and they put them inside little containers and they sell them. So grapes, so that's just in 7-Eleven, never mind the grocery stores, never mind the fast food spots, never mind the restaurants. Oh my goodness. It's so much whole food.
Yeah.
In these places. You have to train yourself to know how to see them.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing, training myself. And it's important to do because they're not trained. They're not trained. They have no idea. If you go in there and tell them, I'm on a special doctor prescribed diet and this is how I eat, they just look at you like you're crazy. So you have to know. You have to know. But what I've been learning is that, particularly when it comes to restaurants, the only kind of restaurant for the most part that is most likely not going to be able to help me are vegan restaurants. They're the ones that most likely I'm not going to be able to get whole food plants plain. But any other kind of restaurant.
That's a very interesting comment.
Isn't it? But any other kind of restaurant, for the most part, I should be able to find whole food plants. And I have been able to, plain.
Now I do know, that, like, if I think of the vegan restaurant in Tucson, where I am, there's no question that some of the food that's being served there, has, in some of the places, has oil added to it and maybe a little too much salt. But at the same time, I believe that I know that I could get certain things. Like, there's this great little Mexican restaurant that's mostly vegan. There's a little bit of dairy there in Tucson called Tamarico. And I can go in there and I can say, can you make me up the bowl with no oil? And so they will make that up for me, And so
while I get where you're coming from. Yeah. While I get where you're coming from, Denise, remember, I'm talking about no salt, no oil, no flour, and no sugar added. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. So probably the salt part in particular is actually in a lot of restaurants. So I guess kind of like you're saying, well, if you went to a steakhouse, you might just get a baked
One of the best places. Steakhouses, seafood restaurants, Thai restaurants, those kind of places, buffets. Oh, very easy. Because they have whole food plants still raw in their kitchen. That's what I'm specifically looking for. I'm specifically looking for places that haven't prepped their food at all.
So when you go there, do you ask them like to just serve it to you raw rather than like cooking it?
What I do is I don't even go in places, Denise. I call first and I ask to speak to a manager. And I let them know I'm on a special doctor prescribed diet and I want to know what type of sides do they have. And I listen. They start telling me what type of sides they have. And I can tell from there, okay, sounds like you have mushrooms. Sounds like you have potatoes. You know, if they're saying baked potatoes, oh, it's on, unless they prep their potatoes with oil.
Right.
Right. If they're telling me, you know, I'm just listening. That's what I do. Because like I said, I've been training myself. Okay, I know what I like. All right. In my home, I fix all sorts of dishes, right? Burgers, crab cakes, you know, mushroom burgers, crab cakes, carrot dogs, all sorts of things that I would never expect these restaurants, because these chefs do not know how to do this. As a matter of fact, I've actually started consulting with chefs at different restaurants to teach them how to fix sulfose-free whole food plant dishes.
Well, that's great. So do you feel like you've had some success yet with that?
Absolutely.
Or are you still working on that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's always going to be a work in process, but I've had plenty of success. It's gotten to the point, Denise, whereas I am not finding it a challenge anymore. So it's getting old for me. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to eat at home, because it was a challenge at first, because like I said, back in 2017, that was like an obstacle that I couldn't quite get over. Road trips and traveling in general. I had done a massive association with traveling in general with eating out. That was a part of the fun. A part of the fun was, yeah, we're gonna, you know, get Burger King, get this, get that, you know, as we on our road trip, whatever. So, and in general, just vacations and traveling, there is this association that we make with eating processed foods, particularly because it's all about, I just want to relax. I don't want to have to do anything. And that's a part of it. But even though in 2017, that's what I was dealing with, I didn't like it. Because like I said, that's that prison thing again for me. So when I was thinking about recommitting and getting started at the beginning of this year, that was one of the main things that stood out to me was, okay, you know what? That can't be an obstacle for you this time, because you're actually learning sustainability this time. You're committing to learning sustainability this time. So that can't be an obstacle. Get that out of your mind right now. You're going to have to figure this out. So that's what I've been doing. But it's old now because I'm used to it now.
So just 9 months? In 9 months, it feels that old?
I'm talking about challenging myself with learning how to order out.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that part is old to me now. It's not a challenge anymore because I successfully ordered whole food plants at so many places, whole food plant. And I just eat simple, you know, simple steamed plain asparagus, plain vegetables, plain steamed rice at a Thai restaurant. That's the first time I ever ate at a Thai restaurant because I'm not necessarily drawn to that kind of food in general, those kind of dishes. But I found out that they were able to fix plain steamed rice one day. I was out and I was doing some things and I kind of set myself up. And where I normally would go to get plain baked potatoes, they didn't have any. And I was getting hungry. Now I recognize hunger is not an emergency. That's what I recognize now. And I've been working on that for myself. But I was hungry. I was hungry and I found a Thai restaurant and I started talking to them and I was like, this is what the type of, you know, special doctor prescribed livid that I'm on. What can you all do for me? And they were like, well, we have plain steamed rice and we have plain steamed vegetables. And it was like, as they started telling me that, I was like, okay, let me get that. Then I started looking at their menu. This is what I do. I start looking at the menu and then I'm like, oh, you have ginger, add that. Oh, you have lime juice, add that. You know what I mean?
Oh, very good. So
and next thing you know,
the soy sauce with the
no, yeah, no.
Right, you're not going to do that, right?
No, and I don't need to. And neuroadaptation of my palate, you know, over the last 8-9 months has graduated to what I originally set out to do this time around, which is to just truly appreciate vegetables and love the taste of them. And never have I ever in 44 years of my life until this year truly could say that I really love vegetables and I really love the taste of vegetables and appreciate it. Never until I officially cut the salt, the oil, the flour, the alcohol, the sugar. It's like, I love it. Even just over the last week, I've been fixing some dishes that I haven't fixed in months. And I've just been appreciating the difference between back, you know, earlier this year, how my palate wasn't quite, you know, appreciating as much as it is now. And it's exciting.
Yeah,
you know?
I want to, so I have just a comment and then a question.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to relate to your story about traveling and eating, because I remember back before I was a 100% plant-based eater. I was a vegetarian early in life.
Okay.
21.
Right.
So, you know, I wasn't eating the bodies of animals through most of my life. But for me, traveling was like, oh, let's check out the bakery in this little town. Let's go and get some, what do I like, you know, chocolate chip cookies or cheesecake or a lemon slice. Yes. And I even remember when I first started coming down to Tucson, there's a place here that, you know, before I moved here, I would like go and get their lemon slices because I love that taste. And the interesting thing for me now is, well, I am not flour free like you are. And I, you know, I personally have never had that issue with
refined food addiction,
cravings for the ultra processed. Yeah, that wasn't my issue. But honestly, I can't eat those kind of desserts anymore. So something has completely changed with my palate. Even though I'll eat flour in the form of some really great whole, you know, grain bread or a pizza. And of course, it will always be whole grain flour. I don't eat refined flours. But even if I eat a whole grain muffin, right, all whole flour, right, there's sugar in it and there's some fat in it. You know, if you were to buy it, even if we make it fairly healthy here, I can't eat it. My palate just doesn't like those flavors in my mouth. I don't know, something with the flour and the sugar, it just doesn't work for me anymore. And I find it so interesting because I like really loved my lemon squares or the cheesecake.
Ooh, yes.
No desire.
I did too. I love lemon squares. My goodness. I taught myself how to make some vegan lemon squares last year for the first time. Oh my Lord, Denise. And you know, I definitely can relate to what you're saying because before the beginning of this year, something that my daughter and I have been doing over the last few years that we've been traveling is we've actually been visiting various vegan spots as a part of our vacation. And not just her, but other people who I've traveled with, same thing. Or even when I travel by myself, it's actually like been a part intentionally. Like, oh, I want to see what type of vegan restaurants they got. You know?
I would too, but you know, I do really value your comment because it is a problem for me even here in Tucson. I don't want to eat the food in the vegan restaurant when they're bringing in Gardein, Beyond Burger, and then you know, it's too salty and maybe there's still a little too much oil in it. I can't eat that way myself even. So I recognize that I have to kind of, you know, now I haven't been anywhere actually since March. I'm not even doing takeout because I'm
Oh,
older.
okay.
We're COVID
Okay
right
then.
now, and I'm
Uh-huh.
a very cautious person with my health. I just don't want
I
to suffer. I don't
understand.
want to suffer. That's, and
I
I'm
don't blame
68.
you. I don't
So
blame you. We're all in different spaces with
yeah.
that, and I respect every single different space that each of us are in.
So,
So I get it.
but
Yeah.
but I wanted to ask you another question besides that little story. So,
Mhm.
the fact that you're not consuming any salt, um,
Mhm. But
actually
I
some of
am.
our,
But
okay, so
I
tell me
am.
about that. So how you're getting
Well,
your iodine for your thyroid.
naturally, sodium is in so many whole food plants. So I always want to make it clear, oh, I am consuming sodium, the sodium that's naturally in the whole food plants that I eat. I am consuming sugar, the sugar that's naturally in the whole food plants that I eat. There is a little bit of oil that I consume, the oil that's naturally in whatever whole food plants that I eat.
Right, and the nuts and the
You know what I'm
avocado.
saying?
Right.
So
But the reason
yeah.
why I asked that though is because like I know that there's, certainly advocates for the no salt. Chef AJ's a big one, and
Mhm.
but our doctors do also talk about, I listen to many lectures,
Mhm.
and read a lot of that for some people, they still feel that there might be a bit of concern that
Uh-huh.
they're not getting enough iodine, even
Uh-huh.
if they're just eating the plant. So I'm glad it's working for you.
Yeah.
I do feel that because I don't feel that there's a consensus
Uh-huh.
among the doctors that every single person will get enough of their iodine
Uh-huh.
need,
Uh-huh.
without adding anything. So
And
I just want to share that.
I don't think that there ever will be a consensus, because that's the beauty of this world. It's so many of us here, and it's so many different types of thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
So what I always am an advocate for is figuring out what works for you.
Uh-huh.
Figuring
Right.
out individually what works for you. That's what I'm doing. This is my journey, not anybody else's. So I can only figure out what works for me. What
Right.
works for me is not ingesting things that have refined sugars added to them, and not adding any refined sugars to my food myself, to my whole food plants myself. That's what works for me. Not adding any oil to my whole food plants. That's what's working for me.
Right. So let's segue to, we talked about like how you can find healthy food when you go out
Uh-huh.
and or in a store, a convenience store. But if we could segue to your home, and now
Mm-hmm.
that you are making your meals with just whole
Uh-huh.
foods, could
Mm-hmm.
you share with us like a day's worth of food, an average day for you? Start from the beginning, and what are you consuming so people can have an understanding of, how it's working.
So again, it's always important for me to let people know that I'm a spontaneous person. So real talk, there's no such thing as an ideal or a regular or a typical day for me, as far as actual names of dishes and things of that nature. What is typical for me is leafy greens generally, is how I start my day. Whenever I do have my first meal, whenever my body calls for fuel, whenever that is, because I don't name my meals anymore. I don't do breakfast, lunch, dinner. I don't do that stuff anymore. Those things haven't been working for me. Snacks, treats, I don't name my food. My body's fuel, whenever my body calls for fuel, generally leafy greens is going to be, and veggies is going to be the first thing I eat.
So share with us like which type of leafy greens for an example, and how you prepare it.
Okay, so in general, for me, myself, and I personally love spinach, and I love collard greens. So, I cook collard greens with a few different seasonings in them, like, salt substitute, whether it's Mrs. Dash, table blend, or table tasty, and smoked paprika, a goodie, really. Garlic powder, onion powder, chipotle chili pepper, That's what I put in my collard greens and
And,
let them.
and how are you boiling, steaming,
I'm boiling
sauteing? How are
them.
you
I'm
doing it?
boiling them. I'm slow cooking them for a couple of hours. So
Oh,
like I
so
did that this morning. Yeah, as soon as I get up, if I'm gonna do collard greens, I'm doing it first thing in the morning because I get up really early in the morning, as I was telling you.
so is that
I
like
put
in a
that
crock? Is that in a crock pot that
That's in
you
a regular pot, just a regular pot,
and you
put
just
them
leave it on
on.
the stove for hours, like at a very low temperature?
I start off boil and then I turn it down and I let it, cook for a couple of hours. Spinach is another favorite leafy green. Those are my favorite leafy greens, spinach and collard greens. I like romaine lettuce too. So like with spinach, if I'm not eating a spinach fruit salad, which I got tired of from back, in the spring and summer, I ate that like every morning for weeks. And then it was just like, oh, I'm tired of that. But before that, it was collard greens and until I got tired of it. And that's what I was talking to you earlier about, whereas I'm just now starting to eat collard greens again. And it's just like, ooh, they taste even better than they tasted months ago,
So your palate is even more developed to
Indeed.
enjoying.
Yes,
Right.
it really is. And so, so as far as leafy greens are concerned, those are the type of leafy greens that I like. And so typically, the only thing typical about my days are starting off with leafy greens and vegetables in general, and then followed by starch, some sort of starch. And then
So give us some examples of the kind of
Oh, my
starch.
favorite starch is potatoes. Okay.
Which kind of potato?
Regular plain baking potatoes, whether it's russet, Idaho. I love to eat baked potatoes. I also will get, I can make fries. I love eating French fries that I bake in the oven. But also.
So let me just stop you there, because a lot of people are going, well, how are you going to make those fries without oil? So what's your process?
It's easy. All I'm doing is just cutting the potato into fries, and I'm coming up with some kind of seasoning mix that I'm going to shake them suckers in, and then I'm putting them inside the oven at like 350, 355, something like that. And I watch them, about 40, 45 minutes, something like that. If even, they're ready. And they taste
So
awesome.
you haven't found that you need like some kind of, I don't know, coating to have the seasoning adhere to the potato?
You don't need to. Potatoes are wet. When you cut the potatoes open, they're not dry. They're wet. So you don't need, like, so many of our whole food plants are naturally moist.
Right, there's water in them. Right.
Exactly. So even though we've been told that, oh, we need this or we need that to make things adhere or whatever, not necessarily, because most of them are naturally, a lot of whole food plants are naturally moist anyway.
Yeah.
Potatoes definitely are. Juice is coming out of the potato when I'm cutting it. That's for sure. I don't know what you see, but
yeah, well, we found a recipe not too long ago where there was a little, I think it was baking powder. I don't remember if it was soda or powder, but probably powder that cut your potatoes, and then you would use a little bit of this baking powder with it, and then the seasonings stood on more.
Okay then.
So we've tried that because we don't like to, we are not 100% oil free, but we hardly use it, and very few things that we use it for. So that was one way that we found.
Okay then.
But again, it's just whatever somebody likes. Okay, so we start out when your body needs fuel. Usually your first thing are some leafy greens.
Typically, generally, not always. But that's how I started out.
Right.
Back in January, because I know that there are thylakoids in the leafy greens that actually assist in cutting cravings. So I had to start out like that and be serious about it because, like I said, I wanted to finally get to a point where I really actually enjoy vegetables and I want them.
Right.
So that's how I started out. And that's why you'll hear me say, typically, the only thing typical is that generally I'll start out,
right.
Now that the cravings have been cut so much, I still deal with cravings sometimes, and I believe I always will. but the withdrawal symptoms are, you know, pretty much obsolete these days from how it was back in January, February, March, you know, that while I'm still going to have leafy greens every day for the most part, I might not necessarily start my day out with them because I don't have to, you know, I know I'm careful though, because I know I am a refined food addict and overeater. And I know how easy, if I'm not careful, that next thing you know, I'm not eating leafy greens anymore. I'm not that far removed from not liking them, from not making it an everyday occurrence or even an every other day occurrence. So I know I have to be careful in general.
Yeah, kind of like the one day at a time thing, you know?
Yeah,
it's like
it's one bite at a time.
Today,
actually.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So again, I want to, you know, even if it's not what we call typical, again, I'm just trying to, you know, get this out of you because I really want people listening just to kind of see the choices and, you know, how you fuel yourself. So if we can just kind of continue a little more. So, you know, we hear you, you know, most days you're going to eat leafy greens. Eat some
I'm going to eat fruit.
You love your potatoes.
Yeah, I'm going to eat fruit. I'm going to eat fruit. I personally love
fruit, obviously.
Absolutely. I personally love golden delicious apples and bananas. So pretty much every day I'm having a golden delicious apple, at least one, and one banana at least. These days, like I said, things change, you know, from one day to the next, whatever. But yeah, so fruit is going to be in there, and that's a part of just in general what I'm eating. Another kind of potato that I have been eating a lot of lately, because I, as I was telling you before, I'm diagnosed with 4 different mental illnesses, bipolar, PTSD, depression, and anxiety.
Yeah, so that's a lot to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so I'm about 3 or 4 weeks out now from having had a 4 to 5 week bout with depression symptoms, and it was super exhausting. And so and so as a result, I really started getting into there are potatoes in the grocery store in the produce section, red potatoes, and sometimes they're mixed baby reds and gold, in a bag.
That's what we buy.
Put them in the microwave. I love keeping those in the house, as well as regular and sweet. I love keeping those in the house. And sometimes I'll alternate, you know, every other day, baked with put them in the microwave. And you know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, and then never mind, you know, squash and different starches.
Like winter, that. You mean winter squash, right?
Winter squash, but also zucchini and, you know, summer squash as well.
Right.
So there's that, you know, and sweet peas is pretty much the only kind of legume that I consume. Since I've been on this journey this time around, I got to a point where I started realizing that most legumes are actually, my body's giving allergic reactions when I consume legumes. Yeah, in the form of inflammation.
So you mean whether they're the beans, the lentils, the split peas?
All of them. The only type of legume that I notice I don't seem to get an inflammatory type reaction from are sweet peas. So I eat sweet peas.
You mean the frozen green peas? Is that what we mean by sweet peas that we would see in the frozen?
And it actually says sweet peas on the frozen bag. Or you know, you pop them, you know, out of the pod if you get them fresh. So yeah, and then as far as grains are concerned, oats and corn. Outside of those grains, for the most part, the same thing. No rice, Very, very rarely. That's why you heard me say that Thai restaurant. I had already, because this has been months now since I stopped consuming most grains and legumes outside of sweet peas, corn, and using oats in my, mix for binding.
What type of oats do you use?
Steel cut.
So you're pretty close to the top of the hierarchy.
But sometimes
actually,
I'll, have quick is, just quick to use, like it's for binding and in my recipes and things like that. But, I only recently have I even started ingesting oats as oatmeal. Only recently, because it started getting cold and I've been playing around with having oatmeal with the steel cut oats, sometimes with blueberries, bananas, and cinnamon in it.
Yeah.
But even with that, I just know I have to be careful. That's why I only just now started, because I know that it's a trigger for me, because oatmeal is very sweet. Oats are sweet. I can smell how sweet they are when I pop the, and
okay. Your mic went out for just a quick moment, but it's back.
Okay.
Okay, good. So I'm just curious, when you feel like if you were to eat legumes, and most of them, or most grains, and you feel the inflammation, you feel like it in your joints, or like how does that?
It's a swelling that's happening in my body. It's a bloating that's happening in my body. It's certain feelings that I'm getting actually in my tummy after I'm ingesting them. They don't digest as well as I would like them to feel as healthy as I need to feel.
Right.
Have you ever tried my bowel movements?
Have you ever tried sprouting the beans to see if that would make any difference? I mean,
I haven't, because it hasn't been that serious to me. Like I said, I love challenges, Denise. So once I discovered this, information about my body with grains and legumes, then I started experimenting to see, well, let me see how many different types of dishes can I come up with that doesn't have legumes in them, that doesn't have rice in them. Let me see. And you know what? I came up with all sorts of recipes and dishes that doesn't have those things in them. I don't need it. It's not a big deal to me. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I did, but I realized that I didn't, and I feel so much better. So
I guess the thing is, as long as you believe or feel that you're getting, well, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but many of the doctors in the whole food community, they all often talk about fiber. How important fiber is, right?
I get plenty of fiber.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, while fibers in all our plant foods, it's actually typically highest in our legumes and some of our whole grains, even though it still is in our fruit and in our vegetables.
It's in potatoes. Plenty of fiber in potatoes.
So you feel like you're getting
I know I am.
Amounts of fiber.
I know I am.
Without those other groups. Right. And you also feel just the question I would have is that while protein is in all our plant foods, it's in broccoli, your collards, but it also is in higher quantities in our legumes. And so the fact that you're not consuming that, you don't feel like, and I know most Americans are way over protein. So they're over, but but you still need a certain amount, and
I get plenty.
So that you're okay with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Good.
I get plenty. I eat a very diverse bunch of whole food plants,
So what's another example of a dish when you might be combining some things together?
Oh, the burgers, the sausage patties, the mushroom burger.
Like what kind of burger? Like what kind of burger? Like what
mushroom burger? Mushrooms and different types of spices, and a flaxseed egg or two, depending on how much I'm making in one batch. little bit of oats. Yep.
Right. So anyways, you're not having any issues, obviously, with feeding yourself well and
no way. I eat really good, Denise. I do. I'm an awesome chef now. I have been experimenting, fixing all sorts of dishes over these last 8-9 months and just having a blast with all of that. And once I ran into that depression patch, dealing with those depression symptoms for about 4 or 5 weeks here, about a month and a half ago, then I simplified things. I didn't have a choice. And that has been awesome in and of itself, because I'm only just now starting to get back to like fixing dishes that involve combining things. I'm very happy just eating baked potatoes or steamed potatoes with some salt substitute on there and some homemade salt, oil, sugar-free ketchup, or, you know, Primal Kitchen's oil and sugar-free ketchup. And they got a little bit of salt in it, but I'm not drinking the bottle.
right.
I'm very happy with doing that. Corn on the cob, sweet peas, fruit. I'm
Right. So obviously you're
asparagus,
not feeling like you're missing things
no
or
way,
right? You feel like an
not
abundance.
at all, not at all. It's so many different types of whole food plants that are on the face of this earth. And for me, it's about understanding that once I work to change my palate, to cleanse it, reset it, get it back to where it originally started out before consuming salt, oil, flour, sugar, alcohol, and staying here. This is the first time in my adult life that I have ever eaten like this for this long, ever. Actually, I said my adult life, my whole life. Because even when I was a child, as healthy as we ate, all things considered, I still had things with salt in them that wasn't naturally occurring. Things with refined sugar in them that wasn't, you know, that just wasn't naturally occurring sugar.
Right. So I'd like to ask you, Evon, have you had support from other important, you know, groups of people in your life? So, you know, I'm just even curious, like, you know, if you've gone to any doctors since you've made this real, you know, renewed commitment, and whether, you know, you've had any interactions with them and are they supportive or not?
I continue to be seen by my doctors. You know, nothing has changed as far as just because I eat like this now. I continue.
I guess what I mean is, do they know and do they support you?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I know many stories of their doctors who are like, no, you got to eat that animal protein. What, are you kidding? So
I'm not the type of person, like I said, I've been a holistic practitioner for, you know, over 15 years. I'm not the type of person that will be going to any kind of doctors like that anyway.
Cool.
You know,
and what about like your friends or, you know, other family members? Do you find that, you know, they're supportive for you? Is there any
They
issue?
are. I'm very blessed, very much so. My friends and family, very supportive. They know me well. And so they know that I'm going to do what I do anyway, and that I am clear about what works for me, and I do the work to figure that out. So yeah. And as I think I was telling you before, you know, my 17-year-old is still home. And so we have been working together, you know, this time around, as I have been recommitting myself to learn sustainability in eating like this. She has been super helpful.
Isn't that great?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And you know what? I think a lot of it has to do with just in general. I'm not interested in trying to shame her and I have unfortunately done this in the past with my children, you know, I've learned it is not good at all to attempt to try and force them to do anything that you're doing, or shame them or anything like that. So, you know, I've looked at her as a boot camp instructor. She is my personal boot camp instructor, because guess what? I don't have to leave outside of my house to deal with the smells,
right,
and the sights of these foods that trigger overeating for me. I don't have to leave outside of my house. It's right here. You know, it's right
so
here.
I got to ask you, I'm not sure I'm clear. When you say she's your boot camp instructor, you mean
Yeah.
you're the instructor or she's the instructor?
She's the instructor. The reason why I call her my boot camp instructor is it's more so about the fact that dealing with her and how she eats in general sometimes, because she eats like I do sometimes too, and she can fix this food and it's awesome, you know, and she's on her own journey. But dealing with her when she's eating foods that I don't eat, that's like a boot camp for me, because it tests my commitment.
Okay.
It tests my resolve. It tests the triggers, you know, it brings up the memories that are associated, the good memories that are associated with these different kinds of foods. And for someone like me, who's committed to learning to eat sustainably like that, well, what I've learned is that it's so easy for us to say what we're gonna do. And if we're by ourselves in our home, completely by ourselves, and we got our perfect environment and everything like that, then we still got to deal with TV shows and, you know, what's going on our phone, on different social media platforms, and it's food being, you know, everywhere, right? We still got to deal with that. But for the most part, the general saying is, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. And while I think that's wonderful for people who are able to have that, I don't have that. And yet I'm still serious about my commitment to learning how to sustainably eat like this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's a boot camp that I'm in, you know?
And so I want to ask you, so we're going to get kind of to wrapping this up, because we've been talking for quite a while, but just a few more things. So, I mean, you've been doing this now for 9 months. I can see you're committed, and it was very interesting just hearing about this a little bit with your daughter, and because it's a challenge for you to recommit to what it is you really want to do and why you want to do it. So I just, you know, just again for our listeners, now, you know, 9 months later, and you're just in a different headspace. What would you say is like really the fundamental reason why you want to stay with this commitment?
My why?
Yeah.
My why is I'm tired of being in pain. That's my why. That's the why that makes me cry. I'm tired of being in pain, Denise. When I consume food in general that has salt in it, that's not naturally occurring, when I consume foods in general that has refined sugar in it, food and beverages that have salt, sugar, oil, alcohol, and flour products. When I consume food that has those things in it, those excitotoxins give my brain dopamine hits, and I don't moderate it all. That is why I'm considered a refined food addict. I don't moderate it all. I cannot.
Right.
I've tried it. I've learned a lot of us can't. We just don't realize that we can't. But I know I can. And so as a result, what has that led to for me in the past? Overeating leads to depression. Depression leads to me not taking showers, taking baths, being able to get up out of the bed, causing my children immeasurable pain over the years, long before I even was diagnosed with these. But these symptoms I've been experiencing from these various mental illnesses that I've been diagnosed with for many, many years.
Right.
So it's my why. That's the
Yeah,
why.
and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but Dr. Joel Fuhrman has a book out that he did a few years ago called something about with processed food in the title. And it's all about really kind of the struggle you're talking about with people so addicted to these foods and why they're addicted. And in that book, he actually talks about a lot of the connection of the ultra processed food to mental health issues.
Yeah.
And he talks about depression and all of that. I read that a couple of years ago, so it's not all to the top of my head right now.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that the symptoms go away. It doesn't necessarily mean that eating like this makes the symptoms go away. What is happening, as I was mentioning at the beginning when you first asked me, what is happening is that the brain is clearing up. Clarity of thinking is improving, has been improving in such a manner that I can more easily recognize the symptoms, easier, quicker. Or even if I wind up, starting to have an episode, and then it's already passed, I could recognize it easier what just happened.
Isn't that great?
Just, in it for months and months and months. And, that's my why.
Right. So you can pull yourself out better. You can analyze it. You have those.
Yes. And recognize to go get help.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to do it by myself.
Right.
I think one of the best things that I have also committed to, in addition to eating like this, is that I'm not going to isolate myself anymore. I'm not giving an option. Addiction and mental illness thrives in isolation. And my commitment to myself, in addition to eating like this, that I've made this year, is that I'm not going to be quiet about it anymore, Denise.
Right.
So I'm going to
and then we'll get to that in a minute about sharing your story. But I have one other thing I want to ask you before that, which is you did tell me that you do believe your journey is an evolving journey. And I just want to make sure I give you an opportunity, if you feel like you haven't quite explained that yet, and I think we have gone through some of that, but what you still imagine as you keep going forward, because you did use that, shared with me, Denise, I just want you to know this is an evolving journey for me.
Yes,
so
it is.
I was kind of curious, like, where do you think it's still going to go, as you go forward?
Well, you know what? I just take it one bite at a time, and I'm excited to see where it's going. I don't know. All I know is that if I'm serious about sustainability, then that means that I need to stay aware. I need to stay observant. I need to stay vigilant. And that's what I work to do every day. I like to let people know, being a refined food addict and overeater in recovery is a journey. And so you might see me eating a Big Mac tomorrow, Denise. I don't back myself up. I'm just being honest. I don't back myself up into any kind of corners or back myself up against any kind of wall. I'm no one's guru. I'm not a superwoman. I burnt the last cake back in 2017 when I got diagnosed with these mental illnesses. I'm a human being. And these are the things that I'm battling. And among other things, challenges in my life in general. And I stay open to learning. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's what my journey will continue to look like. Just paying attention as much as I possibly can with all that goes on in life in general. That's what I see it continuing to look like. Just me continuing to pay attention and sharing whenever I can.
Yeah, and I think it's important, that you share, none of us are perfect, obviously.
No such thing.
No. Yeah. And the thing is, I always say, if you feel like you backtracked a little bit, okay. So all you have to do is restart. You backtrack a little bit.
Or just continue on, right?
Well, that's kind of
just
what
continue on, because for me, that has really been helping me, Denise, is looking at this as a journey. There is no destination. There's no bow wrapped ending, like, it's official, 62 pounds dropped. It's just like, guess what? A whole nother part of my journey just started, because now I'm in maintenance phase.
Right.
The weight has officially stopped dropping. The scale has officially stopped moving.
I know, because I looking at your picture, and I'm going to show your picture again, just
okay.
you know, just to remind, because there was really quite, you know, such a difference in how you look, you know, compared to prior. So just showing these pictures again, I mean, that we showed at the beginning. I mean, your body, you don't look to me like you could afford to lose any more weight. I mean,
but you know what I've been learning, Denise? I've been learning that because this weight has been dropping from eating in such a healthy way, our bodies actually will naturally settle at the weight that it's comfortable with. And I've just been happy to let it do so. And like I said, this isn't a weight that I'm unfamiliar with. This is how I was my entire childhood.
Yeah.
Until I started ingesting these, you know, substances. So I've always just been happy to, you know, I've been learning to be happy just to allow my body to do what it does. And, you know, this is where it's at, 174 to 112. And
wow. Hey. So so before we end, I know you've been sharing your story a little bit already. I mean, I'm so happy you decided to talk with me today so I could learn more about it and also share it. But tell us, you know, some of the other ways that you've been sharing it, and also, you know, people want to follow you a little bit more, and you know how they can do that.
Okay, then. So I have been sharing my story with other shows like yours, your YouTube show, as well as podcasts, live in studio podcasts, as well as audio podcast shows. And I was invited to actually speak on a panel alongside all of the industry, plant-based industry experts, nutritionists, doctors, you know, who you've mentioned already.
Great.
I was, you know, excited to be able to be a speaker in a summit alongside those individuals, and it just keeps going. You know, I'm submitting articles now. I'm being requested and asked to submit articles and write about this experience with various publications and blogs and things of that nature. Yeah, so it just keeps going. And
have you had the experience yet where you might have heard from somebody who heard your story and, you know, decided to contact you, or maybe that hasn't happened yet?
It has been happening for many months now.
Wow. So is there anyone that you might share that, you know, just, you know, of inspiration that, you know, someone received from you?
Well, I've had people tell me all sorts of things, like, you know, particularly because I'm very transparent about, you know, what type of challenges I'm dealing with, what addict brain says to me, you know, as I'm going along in this journey. That seems to stand out to a lot of people. A lot of people have contacted me and let me know that that struck a chord with them. And that is what inspired them to start researching how to eat like this. So, yeah.
And also, I'm sure learning that idea about moderation doesn't work for a lot of people, you know.
It doesn't.
Right. You know, here's something I do that I just know that, you know, would have been a struggle for you. Like, I eat some dark chocolate every day, and I can actually eat a piece, like the tiniest little piece, after a meal, put it in my mouth, and that's all I need. It's got a little sugar in it with the dark chocolate, with the antioxidants, so I like that. And then I can stop. But I know, you know, I'll tell that to other people. It's like, there's no way they could do that, you know? And that's the great thing.
But I can have, you know, chocolate banana ice cream.
Yeah, that's right. One of my favorites. We have
yes, mine too. That's actually, I used to do, make that a lot, and just in general, banana and ice cream, different flavors.
I know, it is so good. I mean, I always tell people, you know, when I'm teaching, I'm like, 5 minutes in your blender, and it doesn't even cost like what it does when you go to buy the vegan ice cream. That's got
so
sugar,
good.
A lot of times coconut oil and all that fat. And you could be eating this like soft serve.
It's so good. It's so good. I haven't had any in months. I remember when I recognized that I was starting to not feel like I wanted it as much anymore, but it sure did help me in the beginning. It sure did. And, you know, just from time to time, if I'm sitting still long enough, I'll make some. But yeah, you know, it's just all about recognizing that, you know, there are alternatives and plenty of them. We just got to have an open mind, right? I did want to make sure that I pointed out that I don't use words like strict or fall off the wagon or cheat day. I don't use words like that because I've been learning that those words feel like prisons to me. So I'm just on a journey and I'm eating for my life. You know?
Yeah. And so again, where's the best place for people to find you if they want to connect or learn more?
Okay, so people can learn more about all things Evon, period, at www.abundanceisourbirthright.com, and that's ABUNDANCEISOURRITE.
Okay, and I will put that in the description for the video.
Yep, and they can learn more about all things Evon because I'm a multi-dimensional person. When they go to abundanceisourbirthright.com, there they will see information about eating for my life. And they'll see the website for that. And that's EATINGFORMYL1FE. There's not an I in life for eating for my life. For me, it's a 1. And there, when they go to eatingformylife.com, and that's the same with all social media as well, then they'll see my journey. They'll see my journey because I've been documenting since January the 6th. They'll see meals that I've posted. They'll see, and they can read all about how I've been wrapping my mind around this from the beginning. And they will also see the sober eating support toolkit that I have put together from the resources that have been helping me and that are still helping me. And there they'll be able to get different types of e-sheets on how to deal with withdrawal symptoms and cravings, startup tips in general, and recovery tips for refined food addiction. And I have an e-sheet that's over 40 of my favorite SOFAS-free, whole food, plant exclusive meal ideas and recipes. Those things are donation-based, but I also list all sorts of kitchen tools, spices, sauces that I generally use. All of that is in the Sober Eating Support Toolkit that you can see at eatingformylife.com. I also do provide scheduled phone support for those who are interested. And a book is coming at some point.
All right.
Probably next year. Well,
you know, I love, of course, that you named, you know, one of your contact points, Eating for My Life, because obviously, you know, too many people, and this was probably you way back then, are living to eat, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. And that's where you get in trouble, right? So whether it's like Joel Fuhrman, Eat to Live, and, you know, yours is a little variation
for my
of
life,
that.
because I am eating for my life.
Right.
I really am. Like, my life is depending on how I eat. It is. That's why I say I'm eating for my life, because it really truly is what I'm doing. I'm eating for my life, you know.
Well, I think, you know, we're going to end, and I just want to, I mean, that sounds like a great closing comment, but just in case there's something else that we didn't get to that you might like to add and share that you might feel important, or maybe we got through most of it. You know, if you just want to just, if you're going to give like a quick elevator speech to somebody, you know, you had just a few moments and you wanted to just say, you know, this is what I did is just was for at least me so wonderful. And this is why I, you know, want to inspire people, you know, give me their last, you know, 30 seconds or a minute to kind of sum that up again.
Okay, so before I do that, one other thing that I always think is important for me to point out is that in general, these are self-care initiatives that I put in place to take care of myself. So eating for my life is one, and then the other is Just Her Getaway, which is a movement that I started to empower women to take quality time for ourselves. And so Going to Abundance is Our Birthright, you're going to find out about Just Her Getaway and that movement. And I'm just literally posting about the different ways that I come up with to figure out how to spend quality time with myself.
Very important thing. Like a lot of women who have children and, you know, all the pressures of life, you're giving and paying attention to them.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And you can't, and we do know from psychology that if you don't take care of yourself, you really can't
it's about a cup. If your cup is empty, you have nothing to pour from because it's empty. So we have to make sure that we are keeping our cups full, our actual self-care cups full at all times. So that way we're not depleted and we can actually work with other people, you know, like our family and friends, because our cup is full. But if I see my cup start to get low, I need to back up. I need to take more time for myself and I need to fill the cup up. So in, you know, what you were asking, what I have to share these last few seconds is make your journey your own and be easy with yourself. Those are, in addition to, in general, making sure that I spend lots of quality time with myself, by myself, paying attention to what I need in general. Those other things that I like to tell people because that's what's working for me. And people can get the free 5 tips that have helped me in eating SoFast free whole food plant exclusive on the Stay in Touch page at Eating for My Life. But again, abundancebirthright.com, ABUNDANCEBISOURRIT.com.
Okay.
That's how you find out. Thank you so much, Denise.
Yeah, it was a joy to speak with you and, you know, hear your great journey and all the inspiration you've shared. And, you know, I have no doubt that you're just going to keep going forward on a wonderful path. I mean, you're still a young woman, you know, you're only 44. So, you know, you got decades.
I appreciate decades. That. And I'm heading into empty nest. Empty nest is 11 months away. My youngest starts college in 11 months. So, it's a new life I'm headed towards. Good. And I want to continue to feel as good as I possibly can, you know? Right. I want to. Yeah. So I appreciate your support, Denise. Thank you so much.
And I you may not know, but and to our viewers, I noticed we had a little internet freezing just now while you were talking. I could still hear you. So, you know, that's the internet with Zoom. Sometimes we can't control all this technology, but I think, you know, we got through it all and without too many of those incidents. So I am going to sign off in a moment. And I just want to thank you again so much. And I want to just remind our viewers that I have more of these transition interviews as well as lots of cooking videos. And the cooking videos, it's actually my husband that's cooking, Georgie. I, like you, Evon, I was never, well, you're different now, but I was never much of a cook myself. So I ended up being lucky that Georgie, who I got with a few years ago, he always loved to cook. So he's our main. So on our channel, he's doing all the cooking, and so we encourage people to go there and subscribe and hit the notification so they can get the videos whenever we do them. I'll be doing more plant-based transition stories with people too. I have other ones coming up. So I just want to share that with everybody. So until I see anyone again, I hope everybody will go plant-based, because there's so many great reasons, whether it's your optimal health, whether it's helping our climate, reverse climate change, and helping planet sustainability. And then it's also helping our animals, who unfortunately suffer a lot because people have their taste for food.
Or even plant exclusive, or even go whole food plant exclusive, maybe.
Right. Well, that's where I am. I'm not as strict as you are with some of those extra things, but absolutely whole food plant exclusive. It's a great way. So until next time, eat your plants, eat your fiber, and we'll see you again. And I'm going to shut this off. If I can find it.